Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Learn how Nerdarchy likes to use NPCs in our D&D games.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
We're gonna come up with NPCs to improve your game, and we've all done different ones. There's probably some crossover, and we have similar gaming styles. So we've all kind of used these probably in our games. Some of the things more than others, but we're gonna throw out there some things, and maybe we'll just list them, and then we'll come back around. So I'm going to go with the monster is your mate or a fiendish friend.
I'm going to go with Wizard in a Tower.
I'm going to go with Frenemy.
So the Wizard in a Tower, I mean, we've all seen Lord of the Rings. It's a pretty good staple in earlier editions of D&D. Now, if you didn't have a wizard with Identify, the only way to find out what magic items did was to go track down a wizard and pay him to get him to identify your stuff.
A quest.
Well, there was actually a point where you actually didn't have an option of having Identify.
That's true.
You know, before third edition, it was not it wasn't a common thing. So, and also you had limited resources, so the chances that you would take Identify were even smaller. And there might have been a time when it wasn't actually even an option. So you literally either had to do trial and error, or you had to find a sage or a wizard or someone who could tell you what this stuff did.
So the Wizard in a Tower, you know, it could be, you know, it doesn't have to be a wizard, it doesn't have to be a tower, but it's an isolated, intelligent individual, I think makes for a great NPC because you have someone that it's going to be a safe haven for the characters to go to. And this offers not only a place that they can go to, but it creates someone that if they keep going back to them, it's a level of familiarity, and then that can be exploited. So the person could be kidnapped, could be attacked, so it offers a number of different quest options there, depending upon how much they actually like that character.
They could later be a villain. And essentially, like, there's two qualifiers for this one. One is, you know, they're a learned person, and two is, like you said, it's a safe haven and it's a friendly NPC, or at least that's how it starts off.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. And you've actually done the variation on the Wizard of the Tower in your game. So you basically have this elven fae spirit being guy who lives in a tree, I think, or is the tree. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I've actually got several iterations of that. We've got the elven guy who is the tree, lives in the tree, but we also have one player character's mentor that you guys actually went and saw, and he is literally a wizard in the tower.
That is true. So you have the wizard in the tower, you have the hermit in a grove, and then later on we ended up with basically another NPC that is kind of like knowledge based. He's like a reincarnated spirit of a half elf that used to actually be our enemy, and now that's a grove that we can go to as players and use, or as a DM we can use that as an NPC in our game, and it just adds interesting take on things, as well as it is a safe haven, and it's a place for the players to get information.
With all of that, like, you can use clearly multiple in a single game without it feel like, come on, you've done this. Like, did you ever feel like that any one of them was an overlap without
no,
breaking
because
it down?
That's the whole point. Like, the NPCs they take on a life of their own and become their own people. Now, for me, I like doing the monsters and using an unusual creature or monster that would normally not be a friend, but a foe, and making it an ally to the party. You know, I've done it with Gentleman Jack, which is this Grell. You know, he wears a Jeff cap and he has a monocle like stuck into his brain, and he's a crime lord in the Underdark. But know, now that makes for an interesting NPC, because he could literally be an adversary to the players or foil to the players, or he could be a contact, or in this case, he might have access to illicit substances, or materials that the players need. So there's a lot of room for it, and it's just weird when the players come across this guy that they're expecting, and they're expecting some kind of rogue or something, or even maybe a drow or a Dugar in the Underdark, and no, it's a floating brain.
You see this brain with a beak and tentacles. There.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
And as you're describing it, I thought, he's a very specific and very estranged wizard in a tower in his own way. You know, he has his area of influence.
Yes.
He has the things he knows about, but yeah, very, very different.
Yeah, and you know the thing about these kinds of NPCs, they can also be quest givers, so it's also important as well. You know, and then there was just like the random encounter of a beholder that was trapped, right? And he's in this mystic arcane prison that he can't get out of. And you know, apparently, like I just like to put hats on my monster NPCs because he's wearing a bowler hat. Because once you do that, the players know it's all right to talk to them. You just got to put a nice hat on them.
It humanizes them.
But no, it gives the players something to identify. And now my players want to figure out how to go back and free him. They want to try and get information from him. And one of them actually left him with their diary to give them something new to read.
Well, that's rather nice of them.
You know, or stories of their adventures. You know, so it just becomes something fun and interesting. I also have used myconids in my game. I basically had like a myconid opium den, and you know, and they would mix like strange drinks with their spores to have different effects on their patrons. I've used what was it, Murphy McCrystaltop?
Yes, Murphy McCrystaltop.
Which basically started out as a regular Nothic. He got struck by chaos lightning.
So he's like twice the size, and was he like turned inside out with, you know, purple crystal spikes?
He was not turned inside out, but he does have crystal spikes protruding from him all over the place, and he is like the size of an ogre now, or bigger. I think he's actually bigger than that. He's more the size of a giant.
I thought he was over 12 feet tall.
Yeah, because he was able to pick people up and carry them off fairly easy, one in each hand. You know, but at first he started off kind of as like an adversary, but then, you know, it turns out he was actually the victim, right? And then they had this weird thing happen to him, and later on I had other players need something that was actually in his lair. So, you know, instead of killing him and just taking what they needed, they were able to talk with him and negotiate in order to get what they wanted. So, you know, and so what happens later in the game, he actually comes back as another important NPC because they need something else from him and they need his help. And as long as he's treated well, he's kind of amicable and willing to do this stuff. And so the players have kind of built a relationship with him.
And that guy has actually crossed games because he originated in a one-shot.
He did.
And then he transferred over into your regular game.
Yes, he absolutely did. And I've done that with several of them. Gentleman Jack has appeared in several different games. The Beholder has not yet, but he may. He may.
Once freed.
Yeah, that's true. I've used a covey of hags where my players needed to get stuff from them, and they kind of negotiated and bargained. That one is probably going to end up being a typical monster encounter eventually, but we're not there yet. Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, I would say that one's probably closer to just, you know, them being the monsters. But...
No, it absolutely is. It's just that they've had an encounter with them so far that has not been ended in conflict.
That's true. That's true.
So for my NPCs, I like to go from the angle of the frenemy, the friend enemy. You're not really sure what they are at any given point. Most of the time, a lot of the players, you might even have a conflict where the players themselves haven't decided as a group whether or not to trust this person or not trust this person. So with the frenemy, I tend to develop a character that is going to be there long term, as long as they don't kill him too quick. That's a danger with the frenemy. And another aspect to it is I usually make them complex so that they have motivations that aren't just like clear cut, like, oh, I'm lawful good all the way, or I'm chaotic evil all the way, because that's gonna, I think, in the player's mind, create like too linear of a concept of what the person actually is. So the more complex the character that you develop for the frenemy archetype, the harder it's going to be to pin him down, and also the more that I think that allows you to branch out. So I had a few examples for this. One of those is a recent Patreon reward, Darius Blue, and he is the owner of a place called the Devil's Den, and he is a half elven incubus mix, which is like a strange type of Cambion. I just don't remember what the elven version of a Cambion is. Uh, and he's like most fiends. He has kind of that bent towards doing things that are more incubus related and charming people and take kind of like usurping people's free wills and corrupting them. But he also has this desire to fight against that aspect of it. And just to the start, some people are going to distrust him because of his fiendish background, and some people are going to
Distrust him because of his elven background?
there is that, yes, because he is not just like some random high elf or something like that. He's more, his background has more of like a high fae lineage to it, and the fae, it's a good idea to never trust them really in the end, because they're always going to try and eke some deal out of you or something like that. So in both, he's like got both sides where he likes to eke out some deals. So there's those kind of issues can develop where the players either want to get some information from him, and he's going to want to strike a bargain with them for that information, and that might be some people might see that as a slippery slope towards losing your soul, which he doesn't do that kind of stuff, but don't all fiends, So he's got that aspect of questioning where his true motives lie, and what he's really about as a character.
He is an incubus. He just might want sexy time.
He's got the charisma for it and the charm powers, so he's good to go on that aspect. Another lower class guy that I had was simply a minion of somebody, and he decided that through the players' interactions with him that he did not want to die. So he made up a story about how he's just like a low-level clerk kind of person, even though he's a wizard and he has some magic powers. He doesn't know like what the big bad's doing. So he's like, I don't know what my employer's up to. I'm just simply doing my job. Let's strike a deal. And the people, he was so convincing. Even the bard fell for his kind of intrigue and things that the people just decided, the players as a whole said, yeah, this makes sense. We understand, sometimes you just got to do what the man tells you to, or you're not going to get paid and or maybe get killed. So he's developed a relationship in which he's just trying to make sure the players never find out that he is actually who they thought he was originally. But because they're so convinced that he is actually a good person, he's like, oh, what else can I eke out of these guys? So he's playing a dangerous game. And so he is definitely the friend enemy who is absolutely like dialing down towards the enemy side, because it's just a matter of time until either the players find out or he decides it's more profitable to get one over on them, or to try and like close the trap on them rather than continue the relationship of frenemy.
So I think that the great part about making a frenemy NPC is you can make a switch at any point in time with an NPC that's in the game. You can be like, oh, I got a great idea. This guy's been helpful all along, but what if now's a good turning point and everything up until this point has just been a manipulation, and now he's going to tweak this for his own end, his own games, and you take the story in a completely different direction. There's absolutely no problem with this.
Well, it's also going to be so much more traumatic to your players when you do that, but especially if it's an NPC they've come to like. So, and that's it. Like, that's like we're telling stories, and as a GM, you want to get your players to kind of have to feel for the things you're doing. Like, so these are all great tactics. Question is, what do you guys do with your NPCs in your game? Let us know. We have a place for that, and that's the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over at nerdarchy.com.
Or you can hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.